Imagine you have an adult son or daughter who has lived with a disability since childhood. They're now in their 30s or 40s. Despite years of determination, support from family, and every effort to build an independent life, they've never been able to maintain stable employment or fully support themselves financially. Like many families, you may assume that once your child becomes an adult, there are very few Social Security benefits available to help. Surprisingly, that isn't always the case. There is a little-known Social Security program called Disabled Adult Child, often referred to simply as DAC benefits. Despite its name, this benefit is not intended for young children. It is designed for certain adults whose disability began before age 22 and who meet specific eligibility requirements established by the Social Security Administration. One of the most unique features of this program is that the benefit is generally not based on the adult child's own work history. Instead, it may be paid based on a parent's Social Security earnings record. Unfortunately, many families have never heard of disabled adult child benefits. Others assume their son or daughter cannot qualify because they have never earned enough Social Security work credits on their own. As a result, some eligible individuals never apply, while others don't discover the program until years after a parent retires, becomes disabled, or passes away. Throughout this episode, we'll follow the story of Michael. Michael was diagnosed with an intellectual disability during childhood. Although he has made remarkable progress over the years, he has never been able to maintain substantial employment or live completely independently. Like many families across America, Michael and his parents are trying to understand what financial support may be available both today and in the future. In this episode, we'll explain what disabled adult child benefits are, how they differ from other Social Security programs, who may qualify, how the benefits are calculated, and some of the most common misunderstandings that can prevent eligible families from receiving benefits they may qualify for. But before we discuss DAC benefits, it's important to understand another Social Security program that often comes first in a family's journey. Let's begin with Supplemental Security Income, better known as SSI. Before we can fully understand disabled adult child benefits, we first need to understand another Social Security program that often serves as the starting point for many families: Supplemental Security Income, more commonly known as SSI. Although SSI is administered by the Social Security Administration, it is very different from traditional Social Security retirement or disability benefits. Retirement and Social Security disability insurance, often called SSDI, are generally based on a person's work history and the payroll taxes they paid while working. SSI, on the other hand, is funded through general federal tax revenues and is intended to provide financial assistance to people who are aged, blind, or disabled and have very limited income and resources. Let's return to Michael's story. Michael was diagnosed with an intellectual disability during childhood. Throughout his school years, he benefited from special education services, individualized learning plans, and the support of dedicated teachers, therapists, and family members. Like many young people with disabilities, he continued learning important life and vocational skills as he prepared for adulthood. But Michael's story is only one example. Disabilities can take many forms. Some are primarily physical, while others affect learning, thinking, communication, behavior, or social interaction. A person may have a physical disability, such as cerebral palsy or another condition that requires the use of a wheelchair, and still build a successful career while living independently. Another person may have an intellectual disability, autism spectrum disorder, Down syndrome, or another developmental, genetic, or neurological condition that isn't immediately visible, yet struggle with maintaining employment, managing finances, making independent decisions, or adapting to the everyday responsibilities of adult life. Every disability is different, and every person's circumstances are unique. That's why Social Security doesn't make decisions based simply on a medical diagnosis or whether a disability is visible. Instead, the agency evaluates how a person's condition affects their ability to perform substantial work on a sustained basis. Two individuals with the same diagnosis may have very different functional abilities and, as a result, may receive different eligibility decisions. As Michael entered adulthood, his family hoped he would eventually become financially independent. Like many parents, they encouraged him to continue developing his skills and explore employment opportunities. But despite everyone's best efforts, his disability continued to limit his ability to earn enough to support himself. Because Michael met both the medical requirements for disability and the financial eligibility rules for SSI, this program became his first source of monthly financial assistance. For many families, SSI provides an essential safety net, while an adult child with a disability continues to receive care, build life skills, and participate in the community as much as possible. But Michael's Social Security journey didn't end there. Years later, when one of his parents became entitled to Social Security retirement benefits, another important program became available, one that many families have never heard of. That's where disabled adult child benefits begin. If an adult has never been able to work enough to earn Social Security benefits, does that mean they have no protection under the Social Security system? The answer is no. That's exactly why disabled adult child benefits exist. Despite its name, this program is not intended for children. It provides Social Security benefits to adults whose disability began before age 22 and who meet the program's eligibility requirements. Unlike Supplemental Security Income, or SSI, which is a needs-based program, disabled adult child benefits are based on a parent's Social Security earnings record. In other words, the adult child may qualify for benefits because a parent worked for many years, paid Social Security taxes, and became insured under the Social Security system. Congress recognized that some individuals develop disabilities early in life and may never have the opportunity to earn enough work credits to qualify for Social Security disability insurance on their own. Rather than leaving those individuals without protection, the law allows eligible adults to receive benefits based on a qualifying parent's earnings record. So, who may qualify? There are 4 basic eligibility requirements. First, the disability must have begun before age 22. This doesn't necessarily mean the person applied for benefits before turning 22. Instead, Social Security must determine that the disability began before that age, even if the application is filed years later. Second, the individual must meet Social Security's definition of disability. As we discussed earlier, eligibility is based on how the condition affects a person's ability to perform substantial work, not simply on a medical diagnosis. Third, the individual generally must be unmarried. However, there are limited exceptions under Social Security rules, which we'll briefly discuss later in this episode. Finally, the parent whose earnings record is being used must be entitled to Social Security retirement or disability benefits, or must have passed away after earning sufficient Social Security work credits. Let's see how these requirements apply to Michael. Michael's disability began during childhood, well before age 22. His condition continued into adulthood and met Social Security's disability standards. He had never married, and years later, when his father retired and began receiving Social Security retirement benefits, another important door opened. For the first time, Michael became potentially eligible for disabled adult child benefits based on his father's earnings record rather than his own work history. But qualifying is only part of the story. How much could Michael receive? What happens if he is already receiving SSI? And could he eventually qualify for Medicare? Those are the questions we'll answer next. Now that we understand who may qualify for disabled adult child benefits, let's look at how these benefits actually work and what they could mean for someone like Michael. One of the biggest differences between SSI and disabled adult child benefits is how the monthly payment is determined. As we discussed earlier, SSI is a needs-based program. The amount a person receives depends on federal benefit rates, certain state supplements, and the individual's income and resources. Disabled adult child benefits work differently. Instead of being based on financial need, the monthly benefit is generally calculated on a percentage of the parent's Social Security benefit. The exact amount depends on whether the parent is receiving retirement benefits, Social Security disability insurance, or whether the benefit is being paid as a survivor benefit after the parent's death. Each situation follows its own Social Security rules, so the amount can vary from one family to another. Let's return to Michael. For several years, SSI provided his primary source of monthly financial support. Then, when his father retired and became entitled to Social Security retirement benefits, Michael became eligible to apply for disabled adult child benefits based on his father's Social Security record. At that point, Social Security reviewed his eligibility under the DAC program. If approved, Michael's monthly income could increase because the benefit would now be based on his father's Social Security record rather than SSI's financial assistance rules. Many families are surprised to learn that a person may receive both SSI and DAC benefits in certain situations. However, because SSI is a needs-based program, any DAC benefit received may reduce or even eliminate the SSI payment, depending on the amount involved. Even if the SSI payment is reduced, the overall monthly income may increase because the DAC benefit can be higher than the SSI benefit alone. Another important advantage involves healthcare coverage. People who qualify for disabled adult child benefits may also become eligible for Medicare after meeting the applicable waiting period required under Social Security rules. This can become an important source of health insurance as families plan for the future. There are also life events that can affect continued eligibility. For example, marriage may affect eligibility for disabled adult child benefits, although Social Security provides limited exceptions in certain circumstances. Changes in disability status or other eligibility factors may also require a review. Because these rules can be complex, it's important to report significant life changes to Social Security and to understand how they may affect benefits. Michael's story illustrates how one program can lead to another over time. SSI helped provide financial support during his early adult years. Later, he became eligible for disabled adult child benefits based on his father's Social Security record. In other families, eligibility may instead be based on a mother's Social Security record, or, in some circumstances, the record of an adoptive parent or a step-parent, provided Social Security's requirements are met. In our final section, we'll bring everything together and discuss the practical steps families can take if they believe an adult child may qualify for these important benefits. We've covered a lot of information in this episode, so let's bring everything together. Disabled adult child benefits are one of the least understood programs administered by the Social Security Administration. Yet for many families, they can provide an important source of financial security for an adult son or daughter whose disability began before age 22. Remember Michael's story. As a young adult, SSI helped provide financial support because his disability prevented him from becoming financially independent. Years later, when his father retired and began receiving Social Security benefits, Michael became eligible to apply for disabled adult child benefits based on his father's Social Security record. Every family's circumstances are different. In some families, eligibility may instead be based on a mother's Social Security record or, in certain situations, the record of an adoptive parent or a step-parent, provided Social Security's requirements are met. If your family has an adult child whose disability began before age 22, don't assume that SSI is the only program that may be available. Likewise, don't assume that an adult child cannot qualify simply because they have little or no work history of their own. Receiving DAC benefits does not necessarily mean a person cannot work. However, earnings from work can affect continued disability eligibility if they reach Social Security's Substantial Gainful Activity, or SGA, level, although specific work incentives and rules may also apply. If a DAC beneficiary is working or considering work, it is important to understand how those rules apply to their individual situation. If you believe someone in your family may qualify for disabled adult child benefits, consider contacting Social Security to discuss your specific circumstances. Before applying, gather important documents such as medical records, educational records, and any information that may help establish when the disability began and how it has affected the person's ability to work. Keep in mind that every application is evaluated individually. Eligibility depends on the facts of each case and on meeting Social Security's requirements under the law. Our goal today has not been to determine whether any particular individual qualifies. Instead, it has been to explain how these programs work so you can ask informed questions, understand your options, and know when it may be appropriate to contact Social Security. For many families, learning about disabled adult child benefits can provide more than financial assistance. It can offer greater confidence, better long-term planning, and peace of mind for both parents and their adult children. Thank you for joining us on the Retirement Briefing. If you found this episode helpful, please consider subscribing so you won't miss future videos covering Social Security, Medicare, retirement planning, and other topics designed to help you make informed decisions for the years ahead. Until next time, thank you for watching and take good care.